Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And greetings to those who are watching online. This is kind of an exciting evening. We have lots of information to share with you and hope that you're excited about it as we are. So I'm going to turn it over now to Pastor Paul to say a prayer.
I'm on blue. There we go. So now they can hear me online too, and you can. So let's start our evening together with the word of prayer. Gracious God, we do thank you for all good gifts, the gifts of this day, but particularly tonight as we gather as a community of faith, we thank you that your Holy Spirit has called us to this time and to this place to journey together as we live and grow in our faith. And we pray for your Holy Spirit to fall upon us as we begin conversations and discernment about a major direction for our ministry. Help us be careful listeners and active conversationalists and discussers as we try on this idea to see if it is where you are leading us to go. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I have had the privilege of serving as a member of 4 different teams that have taken us to this point, and so I'm not the only one going to be making any kinds of presentations tonight, but I do want to introduce you to Holly Kleinsasser. She has been a volunteer chairperson, convener. We'll call you the convener. She's the one that actually remembers to send out the emails to say we are going to get together as a group this week. And so we're going to let her begin and kind of tell you a little bit about to start with, at least the process we've been through.
Thank you very much, Pastor Paul. It's been a great honor to work with the other committee members over the past 3 years, a little over 3 years. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not used to being a star with a mic. To working with the committee over the last 3 years to look at what our needs are for space and then also some opportunities that we can do to address those. So back in 2018, a group of about 12 or 13 people got together and started. You're not hearing? Is that better? Okay. I'll just try to think that I'm Madonna or Lady Gaga or someone like that, or Frank Sinatra. So we joined together in 2018 and spent a year meeting with staff and with other groups here in the church to look at what the usage of our church is during the week. So most of us on Sundays see, it's very crowded in the gathering area, but during the course of the week, there's a lot of activity that takes place in the church. And that was our space visioning committee, identified our needs of what would really make our church more robust to serve our current congregation and also congregational members to come. In 2019 to 2020, we had a design team that met with some architectural firms and selected one through a request for proposal process to help us put some vision into actual pictures, which in the past year, our design team has worked closely with TSP and Tim Jensen, who's a member here, to create some designs of what could be if we're able to move forward with the visioning plan. And at that point, I think right now we're in a communication phase of helping to share this idea with the congregation and get feedback. And then we'll move on to other pieces that we'll talk about tonight in terms of what that would look like in terms of a project and what it would look like in terms of some fundraising. At this point, we want to talk about what the needs are for the congregation as we went through this 3-year process. And I'll hand this off to Paul and Pam.
And I'm going to bring Pam Tetzloff is our director of children's ministry, and she has been a part of this team. And we're going to have Amy Majors here, but I think at school open houses tonight, so she'll get here when she gets here. But first, we just have a little graphic that if you haven't been here through during the week, this is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at Peace. There's the kind of the floor plan of what we have. Monday morning, those areas light up that are being used. In the afternoon, that whole west side lights up, and in the evening, it kind of things gather to the north. Tuesday morning, the room's being used, changes in the afternoon and in the evening. And Wednesday is just like a Sunday around here. Morning and afternoon are much the same, but in the evening, everything lights up. It is like Sunday morning around here every Wednesday evening. So this building gets used a lot, and it takes a lot of careful scheduling, and we don't always, there's Wednesday evening, have the space we need. And Pam is going to take us through some of the things that the space visioning team identified.
Thank you, Paul. As Pastor Paul mentioned, I am a staff member here at Peace, so I work with all of the kids in doing education, Christian education, Sunday school, Wednesday school, and vacation Bible school, and confirmation. So I don't know if any of you are here on a Sunday morning when you are trying to either come into worship at 9 or 10:10 or leave from one of those hours, and all of the traffic that we get on a typical Sunday morning from people coming and people going gets really bogged down. So that was one of the reasons or issues that we need a bigger space. Just to improve the worship services here on a weekly basis. Next is increasing the size of the gathering space right outside the sanctuary, because that too has become a congested area. If you're trying to leave or come to worship, you see somebody you know, you want to maybe stand and have a conversation with them for a few minutes, and it gets hard. You feel like you're being pushed out or pushed in because there's just so much traffic and not a lot of area for people to go to. One of the things too would be to relocate rooms to other areas of the building to provide expansion space for the gathering area so that we can make that area out there bigger, more inviting, more welcoming for people. Enhancing the existing fellowship hall, which would mean renovating it to become acoustically friendly. So I don't know if you've been in the fellowship hall for any kind of event. It's horrible sounding in there when that place is full of people and you're trying to talk or talk over people. It's just really absolutely hard to do that. And then also to make that space more of a multi-purpose area for groups of various sizes. Because right now we don't have a lot of room for larger groups or groups that are in the middle size between the Shalom room and the fellowship hall. There's just not a space big enough for that. So if funding permits, we like to improve and expand the rehearsal areas for our music department, because they are getting a big enough too where they need more area and more room to practice and rehearse as well. So when we move and we look at faith formation for all areas, we have a lot of kids who thankfully are here and participate in our programs. We have, somewhere around 400 kids, and that's just preschool through 5th grade. So that's not talking all the confirmation-aged kids from 6th to 9th grade. So you can imagine 400 kids in the little space that we have. It's not a lot of room for all of those kids to be at all on the same night, all at the same time. So yes, we do have Sundays and we do have Wednesday options, but still that is getting to be not enough for all of the kids that we have in the building. We have way more kids than we have the space for them. It would be nice to have a multi-purpose, multi-use gym space for children's ministries, youth program, peace care, preschool. All of those things happen at some point during the week. So this building never has a dull moment. There's always something going on here all the time. And it would be really nice to provide at least 12 additional small rooms or spaces for conversational spaces, large group number of kids, to meet the needs of the ministries of all ages that we have here at Peace. Another area looking at to expand on would be the administrative area, so where all the offices are held at. Currently, right now, we are looking at adding 4 additional offices to what we have. We have one of our staff members who doesn't have an office. He is out in the middle of the kind of office area there. We don't have a space for him to go to right now, so it'd be really nice to have a space for him. And then as we grow, we're going to need more staff, and we need a place to put them. So that would be the need for that. Okay, so outreach, showing the love of Christ. So dedicating rooms and spaces for preschool and peace care to support their growth and for them to have more opportunities is huge. We have a large daycare program here and a pretty good-sized preschool program. So it would be really nice to be able to accommodate all of them. For them too, a multi-use gym for them to use would be absolutely amazing for them. A gym that would be not a carpeted area, that would actually be a gym floor, would be amazing. We are looking at moving the daycare and nursery room, which is currently right out here next to the Welcome Center, which is so west of the Welcome Center. Move that to another area because when we have right now funerals, the daycare kids are in the room while there are funerals going on. And so they need to get in and out of that room for different needs. So it'd be nice to have them in their area all together with the rest of the daycare program. Provide a second food prep dining area to supplement the uses of the current kitchen. So I don't know how many of you help with funeral lunches. That is not a very big space to do anything in. And that's also a shared space right now with the daycare. So that would be really nice to have a bigger space to do that. And then just have more dedicated meeting rooms because we have lots of community groups that meet here throughout the week. I don't know if you knew that, but almost every night of the week is a community program that meets here. So it'd be really nice to kind of have them in their own area as well, too, and for them to have their own little kitchenette area for that as well. More hospitality. So I think with that, I am...
Yeah, I'm the in-between guy. Say, I just want to let you know there is going to be a time at the end for questions, and hopefully some answers or good questions that we're going to just keep thinking of. So what Pam just shared with you was really the summary of that whole year of the space visioning team to come up with that needs list of how the space we needed and how we would use it. And we took that needs list and went looking for an architectural firm. After interviewing several, we selected TSP, who, working with the design team, came up with a master plan. And here to show you the grand plan of what we'd love to do over the next few years would be Tim Jensen, who I'm going to let you talk from up there.
All right, good evening. Well, this whole process has been a lot of fun because I've been a member here since 1977, so 44 years if I'm doing my math right as well. So I started here going to Sunday school, confirmation. I got married here. We said goodbye to my mother here. I got married. I baptized my kids here. They started going to preschool, Sunday school, confirmation. My dad got remarried here. I mean, so my life is here. This is my church too. And I've had two hats on. One as, a lifelong member here at Peace Lutheran Church on one hat, and then the hat of one of the design team members from an architectural firm coming in to help what I think is an extraordinary opportunity here for us to look at how we increase the ministries and things. So tonight I'm going to have my design, my TSP hat on to help you, to share with you some of the things that we did as part of that process after being selected to go through some conceptual design ideas that really, the idea was, how do we solve the issues that Pam just went through, right? All those shortages of spaces for the ministries we want to be able to handle here at Peace Lutheran. And so we spent a lot of time, as it wasn't just me, we had a whole team that was here working with the Peace Lutheran design team, listening. And it wasn't us coming in with some preconceived ideas. We took that visioning space needs report and started asking questions. And then we interviewed and got input from 5 different user groups, whether it was with the youth ministries, with the worship committee, so we interviewed and talked to a number of folks on from about end of February through the end of August in 2020. And so at the end of 2020, we put together this narrative. It was a very iterative process that we went through, in which we would listen, we would come up with some ideas, come back to the design committee here, put them up on the screen, put them up on the table, kind of move them around a little bit. And it really became an exercise of kind of refining those ideas that we heard in that, or that we saw in the visioning space needs study that Pam was talking about there. So it was really us pulling that information and repackaging it. It wasn't our solution. It was really a Peace Lutheran solution of how could we best plan for the future expansions here at Peace Lutheran Church. And what we figured out real quickly in the first part of our work was the needs for this church probably exceed what we would typically do in a single fundraising activity, at least historically here at Peace Lutheran. I've been a part of a lot of them. And so I had an idea too about when we start talking dollars, and we do, what that means. And so we came back to the group and we said, look, how do we want to look at this? Do we want to kind of focus in on what we think we could do with a single fundraising campaign, or do we want to take a bigger picture? And it was unanimous, no, let's get a bigger look and create more of a roadmap, a master plan, if you will, that we could reference as we're planning and look at this in a total solution, as opposed to little bits and pieces of additions that we could put on here and there, like we maybe have done over the past few decades here with individual projects. And so we put together some things, and in August of 2020, we had a written narrative. We had some two-dimensional plans that you can see here, and we'll reference on the screen here in just a little bit, as well as some three-dimensional images as well. And what I want to start with is that a master plan, this conceptual design that we put together, what it is and what it isn't. What it is very conceptual. It's a big picture look addressing the space needs, okay? It's really that roadmap to providing an educated, kind of guiding us through some of our decision making. What it is not set in stone. It is not complete in its design. It is not the only solution, okay? But it does give you an idea of what could be. And there was a group of, a large group, not only from the church here, but from our firm and from the community that helped us shape these ideas that you're going to see here. And so just want to kind of help you understand what it is and what it is not, because you may look at some of the drawings and think, oh, everything's been decided. And by no means is it. This is more of a, what could it be? Maybe it could be this, maybe it could be that type of thing, but to get you excited about what might be coming up. So, all right. Well, maybe we could take a look at the floor plan a little bit and start there. And so this is the overall floor plan that you would see, including all of the changes that we're considering for the master plan here. And what the intent, big picture-wise, was really to create more cohesive zones of space use. What we found is that, and what we heard as we were listening, was that it was hard for visitors to find their way through the church and understand, well, where are Sunday school? Well, some of the rooms are over here, some of them are over here, some of them are back here. You might find some over here. You know, you get the point. Where would we have a meeting if we were going to have a meeting? Well, it might be here. It could be over here. It's hard as you come in and you're not a lifelong member of Peace Lutheran to kind of understand where some of those things are happening. So we wanted to create a more cohesive use and try and get some of the space uses that are similar in the same location there. So one of the first things that we heard and we looked at very hard was how do we increase the space right outside the sanctuary here? As Pam mentioned, one of the biggest complaints about Sunday mornings here when we have such a vibrant community, a church community here, is that when you leave the service, it feels like you are either getting pushed out the door or you need to get out right now, right? Because you're going to get run over by the next group coming in. And we get bottlenecked right out here. And so that keeps visitors away. It keeps us from being able to have those conversations after services that allow us to connect and bond and have relationships and all those types of things. And so how can we improve that? And so one of the things we looked at was increasing the gathering space and over doubling the size of it right outside of the church sanctuary there. And Jason, maybe I'll have you come back just one more time here and kind of explain. So what that's the light blue area that you see there. And what you can see is that we've expanded not only the area that is currently out here, but we expanded it to the west through what is right now the music rehearsal room and some of the classrooms that exist right there. And some of you that have been members of this church for a long time remember what that space used to be. The original sanctuary, right? That was built in 1965, that's the area over there. And when we put the addition on for the fellowship hall as it is now as the sanctuary, that became a fellowship hall area and some classroom areas. There is a beautiful wood ceiling above there, if any of you remember that. I had forgotten about it until I stuck my head up there doing some investigation a while back about how beautiful that was. And so there's already some great space there that we could expand to the west and get ourselves out of this some of the circulation paths that seem to get bogged up when we have a full church like this. So expanding to the west into that area there, that would be a large enough area for the senior potlucks, other events like funeral meals, other casual presentations, celebrations, gatherings, things like that, but just more comfortable for conversations and especially for visitors just outside the sanctuary. Part of that as well, and it doesn't show up right here, but it would go up against the existing kitchen there. The kitchen would be remodeled as well, and there would be a serving window out of the kitchen into this new gathering space there. So the cookies, the coffee, everything that we've gotten used to could all be right there in that big, larger space with tables that you could sit down and enjoy time together with folks that you haven't seen since last week maybe. So that's something I think that became very much an attraction to things. So critical spaces, again, to meet, sit, connect before and after some of the services. Lots of new finishes, bringing new natural light, maybe through skylights into that existing sanctuary, or excuse me, the old original sanctuary area there, and just highlighting some of the architecture that was already there. So one of the views that we had from an interior there, and there you go, would be this could be a possible what it might look like coming in the front doors. And what you can see on the left side of the picture there is we've pushed the south wall of what is now the Shalom room and the nursery. We've pushed that all to the south a little bit. You can see where that column line is to create some areas where maybe you can get out of the circulation path to sit down on some soft chairs, have your coffee, enjoy some conversation there. We've also opened up the hallway that goes to the west, and then we show a gathering space kind of in the middle of the picture there. You can see the space opening up into what is right now where the coffee corner and the rehearsal room are. You can see that opening up back into to the west right there, and that's where we see some of this expanded gathering space area. So could be a nice place out front there for information. The information desk could be more centralized, but just a bigger space, more natural light, and just improved finishes and just allowing people to enjoy those spaces there. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to the next piece. So one of the other needs that we heard was and as you saw with what Pam had shared, was a need on the music side for some additional music space. And so we had some ideas here for what we called a music hub, if you will, and it would involve an addition to the north, right outside the doors out here to the north, to add, because we're going through the existing rehearsal room, that would go away. Instead, there would be 2 new rehearsal rooms to the south in this addition, along with the music offices, a media studio for some of the work we need to do for some of the social media and videos and things like that, all back in that addition there. And the 2 spaces was something that was very important because of the fact that we really have a competition for rehearsal space, especially on Sunday mornings before the services happen. Not only do we have musical groups that are trying to practice before they perform, but we have vocal groups as well. And so having the 2 different rooms would allow them to both practice before before the services on a Sunday morning, but also during the week. It's just so hard to find space there, and they're tearing it down to accommodate the different groups that are going in there every time. So having the 2 large rehearsal spaces was huge, with some proximity to the existing sanctuary here. Okay, so that's the music hub. The next piece is probably the most interesting piece here. You can see what we're calling the Faith Formation Center. And the Faith Formation Center, if you're kind of getting your bearings about where that is, that sits where the existing fellowship hall is right now. And so what would that mean? Well, that means that there would be a bold decision to remove the existing fellowship hall as it stands. And that wasn't something that this group took lightly. There's obviously some emotional attachment to what was a sanctuary for this church for a long time, but there's also a consideration about how can we use that space, because there is a backlog of deferred maintenance costs that are associated with that. We've got some severe acoustical challenges, as Pam had mentioned earlier. If you've ever been in the large group of confirmation kids that have been in that room, you come out with a pretty good headache there with all the echoes and the ringing, everything that's happening there. So major reinvestment in terms of bringing it back up to speed in terms of space that we could use. It's really hard to add on to because of the shape right there. And it takes up some prime real estate right in the corner, right along 41st Street, of being able to kind of show who Peace Lutheran is to one of the busiest streets in South Dakota here. And so we use it as a lot of different things. It's really our biggest space to gather and do things anymore as our fellowship hall, but it's used as a gym. It's used as a large meeting space. It's used where we have any sort of meal events because of its proximity to the kitchen, necessity for neighbors, talked about confirmation, alternative worship. We do a lot of things in there. So we would have to find some space to be able to accommodate those things if that went away. But what you do see for this 2-story Faith Formation Center is this would be all of our rooms and education meeting and education rooms, essentially what it is. And the large green space in the middle is a large meeting room that would hold about 250 people. And that's a pretty good size room. We don't have a space like that right now, other than I think the existing fellowship hall is about 200 people if you put some tables in there. It could be divided up into 4 separate spaces, so that would allow you to do some different things in there with movable partitions and such. And then it also comes up right up against what we're considering to be a remodel of the existing kitchen space there. So the kitchen would actually serve both spaces. It would serve to the west and also then to the east to the gathering space that we were talking about earlier. So again, large meeting rooms, very flexible, and then as we start to get into what else is in that area, it really becomes the classrooms. The need on the Sunday school and confirmation side of things is so great for classrooms of a size that we can put kids in. That is one of our strongest ministry areas. It continues to grow. The kids are very important to our future, and so that's one of the things that we're working. We're trying to figure out how to best put those together. Sunday school, Wednesday school, Bible studies, And then you have your small groups that want to meet, whether it's the quilting group, whether it's some of the community groups that come in for 12-step, whether it's the other groups that want to join. So all of this can happen right in this Faith Formation Center, which would be a 2-story actual building, in which we would have the meeting rooms on the lower level, some classrooms, and then upstairs would be mostly classrooms, and the youth room would be upstairs. And you can see the upper story there on the left-hand side of this graphic, and it's mostly classrooms, bathrooms. There is a beverage station area there for if we had small groups using it, and the youth room would be down on the kind of the bottom portion of that floor plan there. And again, we would invite you to come up and take a look at some of these graphics that are a little closer for you to see here when we're done here tonight. So lots of things happening in that area there. One of the things that we can do by putting all the classrooms and meeting rooms in one area is we can separate that and close that off from the rest of the church, whether after hours or on a weekend, which is very different than what we have to almost leave the entire church open right now because folks are meeting in all these different areas of the church every evening. And so being able to kind of close that off from the rest of the church would be a huge advantage from a security standpoint. It also eliminates the need for the daycare, preschool, after-school rooms that we have to pack up and have to pack up and repack every single night because they got to get ready for another group coming in to use their space in the evenings. And so having dedicated rooms, to have dedicated rooms for those groups, we need to have more classrooms. And so that's part of what that plan included. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one. So this is a picture from 41st Street looking at what that second 2-story Faith Formation addition might look like. And so that's taken the place of what is now our current fellowship hall in the northwest corner of this property here. So a lot more of a statement being made to folks driving by on 41st Street, very attractive, gathering people's eyes, but a very efficient use of that space as well by using a 2-story as opposed to trying to spread it out over a single-story type of a construction. So the next piece I'd like to talk about is what we're referring to as a family activity center. And Pam again mentioned in the space needs piece about a need for a more active space for not only our youth programs and our children's programs here, but for our community and for our neighborhood. And this is a space that is very common right now with lots of churches, not only in town, but across the country, is having this very active gymnasium type space available, not only to their members, but to the neighborhoods around. And so this is what this is depicting here. It would allow not only for folks in the community to come in and maybe rent the space and provide some rental income to the church, but it would also allow us to handle some of the activities that we would maybe not want to have in some of our large meeting rooms or in the gathering space that maybe create a little bit more of a mess or are going to be kind of loud from the other things. We could have them in the gym, but it certainly serves that need to that active space for preschool, after school, daycare that is sorely needed and is right now being satisfied by the fellowship hall. And so that is a big piece. They would have a divider curtain so it could separate into 2 spaces. So after school and daycare could both use different spaces there or those types of things. Basketball, volleyball, pickleball. We're showing 4 pickleball courts in there. That's become very, very popular, and it could be something that might interest a lot of members of the community to, again, bring them to our church and have them here. And so that's something that we looked at. So that's the new Family Activity Center. Large events could be held there that, again, we don't want to have necessarily in some of the other spaces there aren't as appropriate. So this is a view from the west, looking at, on the left side would be the Faith Formation Center, the 2-story, and then in the middle, the darker spot in the middle would be the new west entrance, and to the right side of that would be the Family Activity Center. And so that, again, is a larger volume space, so it matches up nicely with the 2-story Faith Formation Center that would be adjacent to it. So again, quite a different view than what we have right now from the west side of our parking lot there. So as we talk about, in general, the plan itself, some of the other pieces that come with that is if we build an addition where the music hub is right now on the north side, we would have to relocate the playground to the south side, right? Because right outside our doors right here is where that playground has been for such a long time, to some dismay. We have our kids having to go all the way through the church to get to the playground every single day here. And so being able to relocate it to the south, right adjacent to the daycare, preschool, and after-school spaces makes a lot of sense. And it also gets the kids away from 41st Street, the busiest street in South Dakota here. So there's some good things with that, and we could relocate it over there to the south side. And you can see in a site plan that we have that's the plan, would be to locate it there, and it would be close to the Family Activity Center as well. We've talked about how do we emphasize some of the entrances a little bit more, and so we'll come to that. I'll show you some visuals of that as well. But I will come back to that. Sorry, Jason, didn't mean to get you going. I do want to talk about the other areas that we have looked at. That would be the daycare and preschool and after-school spaces. Really just taking those. We have absorbed a couple of rooms right now that aren't used very well, and that allows us to make some of the existing rooms just a little bit larger, add some additional storage for those functions there, and just make it all together better in terms of adding some, remodeling the toilet rooms and everything like that in that area of the church. But then those could be dedicated rooms for those services and for those ministries that we have here that are so important to Peace Lutheran. And then finally down in the southeast corner, where it's kind of a pink color, is the office remodel. And again, this was space needs that we heard, that we didn't have enough offices for our staff. We have no room for any future programming staff leaders and things like that. And so we talked through how do we best make a space that would be allow for collaboration and meetings between the groups in our staff. And so there was a reconfiguration of that to make it more efficient. We took a racetrack approach. We've got a lot of offices kind of along the outside and then a lot of collaboration spaces in the middle. There's a large conference room now specifically for staff meetings. Right now they have to come out and then use one of the other spaces that is also trying to be used by other community groups. But the church council and the staff could meet then in that large conference room specifically for them. And so lots of good things could happen there for collaboration. East and west entrances, really looking at trying to improve those as well. And so Jason, if you want to pop to the next one here, this is what we think the east entrance could look like. And this would be quite a difference from what we have right now, but you can see there's a drop-off canopy lane there that we could have a drop-off canopy for dropping off visitors during inclement weather and that type of thing. It involves adjusting the parking lot just a little bit, but there's plenty of natural light. We've added some clear story windows there and an upper, lots of glass on that east entry, along with, trying to accentuate the existing sanctuary, this space right here, which is really the focal point of the entire church. So we think that could be a very nice entry space there, and the vestibule would be shared not only with the gathering space in the general church area, but also with the office space. So you would know when you came in the door, it's one door, and once I get here, then it would be easy to figure out I'm either going to the office or I'm going into the sanctuary space. And so Jason, if you want to go to the next one here just real quick. And so from 41st Street, we could do some things with signage, but it would certainly be, I think, a very attractive entrance there, and that's how it might look with some additional signage there coming from 41st Street and going west and looking west towards the campus. And then finally, if we go one more, so this would be an interior image looking out what we would propose as the new west entrance. So on your left, you see that stairwell going up. That would be the stairwell going up to the second floor of the Faith Formation Center. And on the left, on the other side of that wall, near the stairs, would be that Family Activity Center, that gymnasium space. And so, but it'd be a much wider corridor going to the west. You wouldn't feel like you were coming in the back door, like maybe we do now when we park in the west parking lot and try and come in and find ourselves here on a Sunday morning. It would be much more welcoming and a lot easier to walk through. We'd be widening the space all the way to the all the way to the sanctuary here, not just at the west location there. But lots of natural light, very attractive, and again, spaces to kind of set yourself off to the side and have conversation and connection points there. So I think that is the images that we have here. Oh, there we go. Yep. So there is another view of what the total campus might look like from the northwest corner of 41st Street there. And do we also have a video that we can run? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a video, right, that kind of goes all the way around the church here. And this, again, is under the master plan. So we're looking at now the west side of the church with the Faith Formation Center and the Family Activity Center and the new west entrance there. And so you can see that really kind of just fills up exactly where that drop-off lane is currently right now on the west side. And as we spin to the south, again, we're seeing the backside of the Family Activity Center. Right next to the Family Activity Center would be the dedicated entrance, the more secure entrance to the daycare preschool area there. And you can see the playground then to the south of the preschool and daycare areas that we currently have and what that might look like. We've also added a canopy and increased kind of the visibility of that south entrance, as well as widening the northwest or north-south corridor that gets so congested during a Sunday here at Peace Lutheran. And then as we wrap around, we see the small office addition and the east entry as it kind of ties everything together there at that front entry. So again, this is a master plan. It's a concept of what could be if we were to tackle everything that we want to and need to from a space needs standpoint. But it probably all can't be done at once. And so that's when we start talking about priorities. And that's what this feasibility group got together and started talking about, is what are those priorities? And so I think Paul's probably ready to hand it off, and you guys are done listening to me for a little bit to talk about what that phase one might look like.
That was good. So that summarizes the year the design team did with TSP. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark Lissendorf and Adam Hatley. Even though we'd love to do all of that, the next question we had to ask is what's feasible. So hence a feasibility team. And I made it so you can each have a microphone.
I don't think that one is okay. It's okay. We'll start with this one. Hi. So as you can see, we've put a lot of thought and a lot of effort, and it's really exciting. And then we have to figure out what do we take away for our first section, So it was actually, it was, even though it was a lot of work and a lot of effort, that was really the fun part. This next part was actually really tough. It was just real. We went through every single little piece and tried to figure out what can we do, and logistically, what has to move and what, if we started with one piece at a time. So we went through the list. One thing that came up to the top of the list consistently was the gathering space. Just because that affects so many people, and it just really is the first thing you see when you come to church, and especially our visitors, and how they feel when they get shuffled through and maybe they don't even know where they're supposed to go or where they're supposed to sit. So that was the kind of what happens if we start with that? What does that look like? So the very obvious thing to us was we have a music rehearsal room, and we have some classrooms that we have to figure out. We took a look at a couple different options, and it made the most sense to us, dollar for dollar, to start with adding on with the music hub. And what we did, if you look at the picture, we maximized, so we used that same footprint from the master plan, but we maximized our space by saying, okay, we're going to still only have one music rehearsal space, and we'll use the rest of that to accommodate the classrooms that we're taking away from the gathering space. So that way we're still going down the same path. We have, money toward the end result, but the few little walls that we have, to change later would be a minor adjustment. So that gives us the music rehearsal space plus the classrooms that we'd be taking away from here. And part of that too is that kitchen. The kitchen right now is very used. It has very good equipment in it, but it's not very efficient on how it's laid out. So having that as part of this first phase was paramount because just the usability of it is very high priority. I think that's the end of my section.
I'm Mark, and I've been a member here 20 or 25 years and had two kids that grew up here, so have been a part of a lot of different programs, and so I found this very exciting. Most recently, I've been part of the stewardship team here, and so we were in a stewardship team meeting, and Pastor Paul kind of passed along to us that this design group was doing some work, and that perhaps someday the stewardship team might be helping to find some funds for this project. And I said something kind of cute like, well, gee, if we're going to have to help raise the money, shouldn't we see the plan? And that's how I got on this committee. And I'm glad I did. And I brought Gayleen along with me from the stewardship team. I'll let her decide whether she's happy that happened or not. But so in our first meeting, we essentially saw the design team, what you saw as the master plan. And I'm pretty fiscally conservative. I run a medium-sized business. I had to find a way to get some kids through college. And so the idea of spending large amounts of capital, I take very, very seriously. So I came into the meeting apprehensive. And by the time it was over, I couldn't have been more excited. I mean, to have experience like you all have, the bottlenecks and the things that have just happened as this church has grown, for me, seeing this quickly caused me to look into, kind of look back and look at how many people like my children and myself and my family have benefited so greatly from what Peace does for our community, the daycare, the preschool, the senior programs, and so to see all this got to be really exciting. And we'll go back, as now when I joined the project is where we started to figure out, can we do this all at one time, and if we can't, how do we break it down? And so the next piece that our group really thought had to be in the first phase was that family activity center. It allows us to do all kinds of ministry that we haven't been able to do before. It instantly benefits all of our kids that are in the daycare, in the preschool, in the Sunday school, in the youth programs. And just from a functionality standpoint, if we are eventually going to be disrupting other areas, it's just a great, large, multi-purpose space. If we're able to do this whole program, we're going to be without a fellowship hall at some point, because the fellowship hall has to go away while the Faith Formation Center is being built. How do you do that if you don't have a big place to take care of all those needs that the fellowship hall used to? You could put up one of those big white tents, but you better build real fast because you wouldn't want to do that in the winter. So that's how the Family Activity Center ended up in here. And then the last thing that ends up in Phase 1 as it currently stands is that relocated playground that you saw in Tim's slides. And, the running joke was that, well, we can't put the kids out on 41st Street, so we'll have to bring them around to the back. But that caused me to kind of walk around the church and look at things, and really, I think it'd be a blessing to have an opportunity to update our playground that gets a lot of use every day. And I think that's the end of our piece.
I kiddingly give Mark a bad time about recruiting us on this project, but he's right. This was really a good experience, and we spent about a little over a year meeting, and we had some pretty intense conversations. What can we do? What do we need to do? What can we afford to do? So for some reason, I get the money discussion. Okay, well, we felt that what we feel we definitely can handle would be phase one, which Mark and Adam described to you. And we're looking at just under $7 million, which would include the activity center, the gathering space, the music hub, moving the playground, and then that would also include furnishing those spaces. So what happens next is we need a special congregational meeting to approve the project. If it's approved, we are going to be looking at a two-phase program. Phase one, we would like to raise as much as possible to keep our monthly payments down. First phase would be down payment money, and then phase two would be pledges so that we can make our monthly mortgage payments. Following that, once we have our down payment, then we'd be ready to really get into the nitty-gritty of design and getting the specifications all laid out, selecting a general contractor, and then beginning construction. So we've already spent 3 years up to this point, and we'll probably spend several months before there's a shovel in the ground, assuming that the congregation approves this project. So with that, questions? Impressions? I know we don't have all of you are not this shy.
That's very good. Okay, just a minute, Dan.
So I guess my question is, you've probably already done the math. What do you think we need up front to have a manageable mortgage payment?
I'm sorry,
Just looking for what do you think we need to raise up front, because it's a two-phase process, right?
Right. Well, ideally, we'd like to raise $1.5 million up front. And then because we know what our borrowing limit is, and we're still looking at around a 3.5% interest rate right now. But obviously, the more we can put down, the lower our monthly payments will be. But hopefully, I guess that's our goal is $1.5 million to start.
Just want to remind the folks online, and there's quite a few of you, if you want to type in a question into the chat room, I've got my phone open. I'll be able to see your question, and I'll forward that on to the group. Questions or comments? Would love to hear your reactions.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, Ken.
Projected start date?
Well, that's all dependent on the congregational meeting. I would think realistically we'd be looking at spring. By the time we'd get everything done and all of the planning done, I don't know if I guess we have to ask the construction expert whether it's feasible to start something in the winter months, spring months, but that would be my best guess, would be next spring.
Here's another one.
The thought of keeping the the worship the sanctuary open during the construction of the gathering area, is that a feasible, or are we going to be looking at temporary location.
No, I guess that was part of the intense conversation was how do we still maintain the programs we're doing and still get construction done? And, but no, the sanctuary, there's not going to be any changes to the sanctuary.
Okay, we're going to let Tim answer, clarify that.
Yeah, obviously there's some phasing considerations, right? And even when we built this space right here over 20 years ago, there was some phasing that needs to happen. And so it would be in pieces, it certainly would, because we'd have to keep, even just from a code standpoint for evacuation of this space, we'd have to have spaces available. So you'd probably do, look at really behind that wall, that existing wall right now, there could be things going on without any disruption out here. And then once you get some pieces in place there, then you kind of open them kind of in phases, if you will, to allow for that circulation to move out and around while you basically wall off some of these other areas during the construction there. So yeah, this certainly needs to stay open. That's certainly something that would have to happen, and it can happen just through kind of phasing the different pieces of the construction.
Questions or comments? Oh, here's one.
I was asked if there's going to be plenty of storage space, because when you walk into the church itself, we have a bunch of stuff, and over here we have a bunch of stuff, and it's not real pleasant appearing. So is there going to be plenty of storage to put these things away and make it look more attractive?
That would be like a Tim question.
The question was storage space. I'd encourage everybody to watch a video I watched on minimalization. Seriously. But yes, there's going to need to be storage space, and I think when we get into all the detailed planning, that will be addressed as well.
Yeah, there certainly was a lot of discussion about storage because we do know that is a shortage in this area, and that was part of, as the new spaces were added, the storage in those spaces was increased with the idea that we've got some catch up to do in that area here. And so as things get reconfigured and kind of moved around, some of those areas can become additional storage spaces for the areas that are closest to them as we move some of those functions into the other areas.
Okay, other questions, comments? I don't see any online. Oh, here, Dee.
I have wondered about staffing. When we add on, no matter what we're adding, is there going to be a real need for more staffing, whether it be cleanup or places that we will need extra people?
Okay, that's my job. That's my area. And you're right. If you're adding more square footage, you're going to add some additional hours for custodial type of maintenance. I would say that the family activity center, that will also require staffing, because that is going to be highly scheduled, not only by peace groups but outside groups, and has to be monitored. And yeah, you're exactly right, Dee. That's going to have to be part of our ministry budget. Dave.
Okay, you've talked about phase one, and when that's completed, will that look like a completed church before we start on phase two? And how much will phase two cost, and how long will that take?
Great question, Dave. And so we did have a view, and I don't know if Jason is able to maybe find that, on the west side of the church, where we had, so that was part of the, that's the full master plan piece, but we had a picture with the existing fellowship hall and for phase one, there it is, and the gymnasium, or then the family activity center that's there, right? So we did give a lot of thought to how do we make, because we know that there will be some sort of period of time while we're talking about raising additional money and things like that, and so how can we maximize phase one and make sure that is an attractive piece before we can finish everything out. And so that a lot of thought was given to with the existing fellowship and space staying where it's at, what can we do on, and that was part of with the, you can see the piece with her name and that backlit cross that would be on that. So that's just an idea of what that west side might look like. With the new gathering space, the west entry, or excuse me, the east entry then would start to pick up what some of that could look like, but it wouldn't have, that phase one would not have the drop-off canopy and some of that goes with it too. So a lot of what you see from a new construction side would be the music hub and the family activity center piece are really kind of standalone blocks, if you will, additions that can go on nicely and complement the existing architecture that's here in the bold lines of this sanctuary and things like that. And so a lot of thought was given to that on how do we make sure that that view is as good as it can be from 41st Street, because we talked about that a lot. We showed you a lot of views of what that can look like, and so it came across that way. But the second part of your question is when, and that, yeah, how much, right? And I think when we looked at the entire master plan dollars, and Pastor Paul, you might have to help me remember what those numbers were, but in today's dollars, we were in, I believe, that $14-15 million range for the total master plan, everything that you saw in the plan that we have, which is why we recognized that was going to be too big to try and do it all at once. We actually talked about that, though. How could we do it all at once, with loan values being what they are right now, and the ability to do all that at once would cost less to do it once than to do it in multiple phases, obviously. So, but it is just too much to be able to handle, and so breaking it into at least 2 phases would be the plan there. So, how long it takes in between, Dave, would really depend on how quickly we can pay off the debt that we have from the first phase before going into additional debt on the second or third phase. Yeah.
We have an online question from Fred, who asks, is there any thought given to possible revenue streams? Example, I understand that some drama groups are always looking for rehearsal space. Can this new design accommodate them and other needs? And I think the group certainly knew that this facility that is already used as a community center, and these new spaces would be very desirable for groups in the community to use, particularly a gym. We understood that if you want to rent your gym to Y-ball space, that is a definite revenue stream. So yeah, in terms of having spaces available for rent, as long as they don't interfere with the programming of our ministry, can always put that first. Yeah, I would think alternate revenue streams are possible. And here, Ray says, will there be an elevator to the second level?
Absolutely, there has to be by code. Yeah, I didn't touch on that when I went through that, but there certainly would have to be an elevator, and it's shown on the plans in the corner there, so there would be a stairway as well as an elevator to get to the second level of the Faith Formation Center. Yeah.
Other comments and questions? Then I think we're gonna wrap things up. If you could catch from I'll make sure you get a chance to say something, Pat. Catching from the team that's been working on that, they've had the advantage of getting to kind of live with this idea and work with this idea, and you could probably pick up on their enthusiasm. Hoping that now that it's all laid out before you, that this will begin a conversation that will take place over the next weeks and months that will need input from everybody to say, okay, this sounds good, or here, can we do this? And that it becomes a shared vision for the whole congregation. So it's a work in process, but this is where we're at now, and it was time to kind of unveil it to you. So Adam has a word.
I was just going to say, if anyone wants to look a little closer, the 3 easels over by the piano, those are the phase 1 easels, and then everything else is the master plan. So if you want to just take a minute afterwards and get a little closer look at it, I know we kind of flashed it up on the screen, it was kind of far away, but we definitely have these out, and we'll linger to help point out stuff. So
Okay, Pat, why don't you close us off?
I just wanted to update you on the next programs. In September, we have Pastor Wayne Gallipo from the St. Dismas Ministry. So there'll be a lot to talk about. The St. Dismas, or the penitentiary itself, has been in the news. He's going to talk to us about the reentry program and all the good things that happens when the inmates can go to church and be a part of learning more about Christ. October, we have Shannon Austin from City Engineer's Office, and you'll want to know about our 41st Street updates. Things are going to be changing. And then she'll also elaborate on the interstate in 41st Street. And then in November, we have our new chief of police, Jonathan Toome, I believe. So we have some programs that have lots of information to share with you. So now, thank you so much for coming. And did you want to close with prayer?
Someone just texted in that there was a YouTube viewer, not Peace Live viewer, who had a question, but I can't get to it in time. So, YouTube viewer that had a question, you want to get to email Pastor Paul at peacelutheran.com, and we will get your question answered. Let's close with a prayer. Gracious God, always thank you for the blessings you continue to pour into our lives. Help us to remember and name our blessings, not only of family and friends, but this blessing of this church family and the blessing of being called by you in the different ministries that we have in our own lives and the ministries you've called us to together here in this place. Help us be good stewards of our time and our energy as we respond to you. Be with us on our travels home. Keep us safe till we meet together again. In Jesus' name, amen.